and welcome to another Supernaturally Healthy live show. Every week I hop on Facebook at around 6 p.m. on a Tuesday and talk about a specific strategy that is going to help you to feel more awesome, heal your body, sort out your hormones, burn fat, and create this insanely, beautifully, wonderfully healthy life so that you can just feel amazing every single day. So if we haven't met each other and this is the first time you've watched one of my videos, hello, I'm Kezia Hall. I'm a holistic health coach. I live in Scotland and I run Supernaturally Healthy, and I help people just like you to sort out their poop and their hormones and to eat in a way that really helps their body to heal and nourish. So I work with clients on a one-to-one basis. I run my group coaching program called the Flourish Academy. And then I also sell things like recipe ebooks and all that sort of good stuff. So while I wait for people to join me and get comfortable, sorry, I realized I was just like really, really close to the computer there. So while I wait for people to join me, if you are joining me live, or even if you're watching this on recording, if you have any questions throughout this kind of mini workshop and training, then feel free to ask them in the comments below. What I will do though is I'll wait until the end to go through any of the questions, just so that I don't get confused kind of mid-flow. But before we dive in and talk about the topic at hand, which today I'm going to be talking about intermittent fasting. And guys, I've wanted to talk about this for ages and I just haven't gotten around to it. So this is a really, really juicy topic. If you don't know what it is, don't worry. I'm going to go through what intermittent fasting is, why you do it, how you do it, what do I think about it, do I recommend that you do it, all of that sort of good stuff. So that is what we're going to be talking about today. But a couple of things to let you know. My festive recipe ebook is currently on sale. So if you're looking for some gluten-free, dairy-free, sugar-free, tasty, awesome recipes for things like pecan and cardamom brownies, Christmas cake, mince pies, Yule log, breakfast cookies, gingerbread muffins, gingerbread men, truffles, and some savory things as well, like some savory snacks to eat on over Christmas, then make sure you head to supernaturallyhealthy.org/be merry. I've got a recipe ebook. It's really, really cheap and it's filled with awesome recipes so that you can eat and be merry this Christmas and ditch the Christmas belly, because I love feasting at Christmas time, but I don't want to put on 10 pounds in the space of 2 weeks. And this, the recipes and the whole ebook is going to really help you to really thrive and feast this festive season without starting the new year feeling like some sort of like stuffed turkey, which just isn't fun. Also, I am running a retreat in Scotland, in the UK, in February of next year. So if you want to join me in a retreat, this is probably for those of you that have been around in the supernaturally healthy world for a long time, and you want to join me for a 3-day retreat in February 2018 to get your year kick-started, then make sure you click the link above and apply. Closing date, the applications, there'll be a closing date for the applications, and that is the 30th of November, so that's next week. So you need to get your applications in and then, and that's also when the early bird offer ends. Oh no, sorry, you can apply anytime, but until the 30th of November, you can save like, you can save £300. Sorry. I think you might have heard that, you might not have. So if you want to join me in the retreat, if you have any questions, let me know below. Otherwise, click the link above to apply and find out all the information, all the details, the price, the cost. But if you apply before the 30th of November, you can save like a third, which is a lot. So what we're talking about today, also I work with people on a one-to-one basis. So I am taking on my last couple of clients in 2017. Next year in 2018, I will be increasing my prices probably. So if you want to join, if you want to get that one-to-one support and start now, like right away and create your own personalized program, then head to supernaturallyhealthy.co.uk and more information will be there. Phew, I feel like that's a lot of announcements to make. Let's take a quick drink of water. I know, from a plastic bottle. Oh, terrible. But what we're going to be talking about today is intermittent fasting. So you might have never heard of it before and you might be like, what even is that? What's she talking about? Don't worry, I'm going to explain it. Or if you've been around health blogs and the health world, you might have come across intermittent fasting, you might have tried it, you might have heard it being touted as this miracle strategy to help you lose weight and increase your human growth hormone and sort out your brain and all sorts of miracle things that intermittent fasting can do. It is currently it's been quite a trendy strategy to implement for probably a couple of years, I would say now, and it keeps on becoming quite popular. So it's really important that we talk about it because there's some great research around it, but I want to give the kind of Kezia Hall version and my view, my strategy, how I've implemented it, and what that looks like. So first, what is intermittent? Oh, hi Janet, hello. If you are joining me and you are live, do let me know you're here with like an emoji or hi or a whatever emoji you fancy. So intermittent fasting is basically where you leave a gap of eating. A fast is basically when you don't eat. So naturally, we all fast when we sleep, hence break the fast. We will eat dinner, we go to bed, we don't eat for 8, 9, 10 hours, we wake up, we eat breakfast, and we break that fast. That's a fast. So intermittent fasting is about extending that natural fast that we have at night up to 16 or 18 hours, sometimes 24, 22 hours, but the minimum generally that gets talked about is 16 hours. So you might finish your evening meal at 7 o'clock. You don't eat anything else, then, well, it's easier math. You might finish your evening meal at 6 p.m. Then you wouldn't eat anything else until 10 p.m. the next day. If you were doing, 10 a.m. the next day, if you were doing a 16-hour fast, or you would you'd eat dinner at finish eating at 6 p.m. and then the next day you wouldn't eat again until 12 noon. And that would be an 18-hour fast. So what you will have done then is fasted for either 16 hours or for 18 hours. So that's roughly what intermittent fast is. You don't always have to skip breakfast. You could finish lunch and then not eat again until breakfast the next day. So you finish lunch at 2 o'clock, and then you might not eat breakfast until 8 o'clock the next day, and that would be a 18-hour fast, I'm pretty sure. So it's a strategy, and that is the strategy. It's basically about increasing the natural fast that we do in a day from, say, maybe what we might do 8 to 10 hours, increasing that to 16 or 18 hours. And the most common way people do it is that they miss breakfast. So they don't eat breakfast, and then at say 12 noon, they will have an early lunch and they'll have a big meal then. People often, when they are intermittent fasting, this is where you get your fatty coffee. So where you get butter blended in coffee with coconut oil and MCT oil, something called bulletproof coffee. And that's where that really began, because eating fat doesn't affect a fast. So if you are fasted, what you're basically saying is that you're not causing an insulin spike. So insulin is a hormone that helps to regulate how much glucose is in your blood. When you're fasting, what you're doing is you're not eating any foods, and the whole idea is you're not wanting to spike insulin levels, which we'll talk about why that is in a minute. So a fatty coffee with some coffee and butter in it, there's no carbohydrate in that, it's all fat. So therefore you don't spike your insulin levels, which is why you might have a coffee in the morning or a coffee with butter in, and then you wouldn't eat lunch until midday and you'd still technically fasted. So that is roughly what it is. If you have any questions about it, let me know in the comments below. So why do people do it? That is a really important thing. So there's lots of research out there. I haven't read a lot of the research in detail. I have read some of the research. I've definitely not read all the research out there. But it came about as a really helpful strategy for several reasons. And so a couple of the main things that it can be really beneficial with is, number one is weight loss. That's probably where it gets its most popular for, is that people think it's going to really help to lose weight. Whether or not that's the case is another story, which we'll talk about in a minute. Another factor which the research has shown it to be really helpful with is really managing that insulin level. So we just talked about fasting is basically when you are not spiking your insulin regularly. So in terms of how it helps your insulin levels, if someone is pre-diabetic or their insulin levels are slightly unbalanced or unstable, fasting can really help to regulate that hormone again. And that is that the research is quite clear on that. Fasting is really, really helpful for those of you that are pre-diabetes, have blood sugar regulations, and lots of things like that. And I'm not pre-diabetic. Diabetes doesn't run in my family. I don't have PCOS, which is another condition heavily linked to your insulin. But I had imbalanced blood sugar levels. And it's something I work with nearly all of my clients. It's the first thing we look at in the Flourish Academy. Every single person I work with, we look at blood sugar regulation. So important. Like I cannot stress how important blood sugar regulation is, or insulin management is. And fasting, from what I can tell from the research, does really help with that. The third thing that for why you might fast or do intermittent fasting is to help regulate your hunger hormones, specifically your leptin. So leptin is a hormone that does many things in the body, but it helps to regulate your appetite. And it's very common for people to have irregular leptin cycles, let's say, and that can cause weight gain and inflammation and all sorts of different problems in the body. So it's really helpful at managing that. And in general, it can really help to suppress those hunger hormones. Another reason why you might intermittent fast or fast in general is that it helps the body to, when you're not, let's take it back a bit. Digesting food actually requires a lot of energy and focus from your body. Eating a meal, digesting it down, transporting those nutrients to all your cells and to use for energy and for all their different functions it's a very energy consuming process in the body. So when you switch off digestion, what you do is you allow the body to focus its energies not on digesting food and managing that, but onto other areas. And so some of the research suggests that when you do intermittent fast or fast in general, what you do is you can increase the kind of cleansing and detoxifying processes of the body, sort of where you'll have certain cells in your body that are really good at eating some of the junk and the crap, and that fasting, it's called autophagy or something like that. I don't think I've gotten that right, but it's around those, it's this idea that these cells in your body, these kind of innate cells, will go around and eat toxins and help to clean up the body. And that's probably a poor explanation, but that's roughly what it does, is that it helps because you're not focusing on digesting food. You actually, the body can focus on cleaning up toxins from the body because your digestion isn't working, and it can channel its resources and energy into healing, into detoxification, into balancing. Now, there are loads of other reasons of why you might intermittent fast. There's quite a lot of stuff out there in the research. A lot of it is really around your insulin management, around weight loss, around this kind of increasing detoxification, as well as things around PCOS, and even some kind of neurological things. But I'm not going to go too much into depth, but that's a little bit of why you might do it. In terms of my experience with it, I first tried intermittent fasting probably about 2 years ago, and I did the traditional thing where you skip breakfast, and I didn't have a coffee because coffee doesn't do my tummy very well. I had cocoa with butter blended in it. Did it for a week and I felt awful. I was so exhausted. So intermittent fasting, to be honest, in its traditional form, meaning where you don't eat for 16 to 18 hours and you skip breakfast, is not something I tend to recommend with the people I work with. Most of the women in my community, most of my clients, their adrenals are just tired, their thyroids are often sluggish, their energy isn't great, they're fatigued, and skipping breakfast and not eating for 18 hours is really not something I would advise. Skipping breakfast in the morning and having long fasts, if your blood sugar is not regulated, if your adrenals are sad, if your hormones are off, if you're already stressed, it's really not a great idea. And I've had clients who have tried it of their own accord before they've come to me and said the same things, have ended up exhausted and tired. So trying to do that traditional intermittent fast of having an 18-hour window before you eat, not eating breakfast, I don't personally recommend. It tends to work for some people, but for a lot of the women I work with, there's hormonal imbalances, there's stress, and there's fatigue. And if you add intermittent fasting to the mix, it's just really not a great idea. Now, that's the traditional model of intermittent fasting, but because I have read some of the research and seen some of the amazing benefits that you can get from intermittent fasting, I wanted to figure out my own approach that made me feel really good in the immediate, but also gave me all those amazing benefits that intermittent fasting can have. So what I've discovered and my approach to it is that if you can just create a 12-hour window between your last meal and your first meal, that can be a really, really helpful place to start. So what I often encourage people in my Flourish Academy and my clients to do is, say you finish dinner at 8 p.m, then you wouldn't eat breakfast until 8 a.m. the next day. Really simple. A lot of you are probably already doing this, so it's not hard. It's not, it's not overly stressful for the body, and it means that you don't skip breakfast. So what I encourage people to do, if you have breakfast normally at 6 a.m, then have your last meal at 6 p.m. I really don't encourage people to skip breakfast. For some people, it can be a helpful strategy, but just most of the kinds of clients I work with IBS, with PCOS, with fatigue, with thyroid issues, with adrenal problems, with chronic fatigue, it really isn't a great idea to skip breakfast. But doing it this way means you don't skip breakfast, you don't stress your body out, but you do get some of the benefits of intermittent fasting. And there is some research though that even 12 hours is enough to get those benefits. So that is a really helpful place to start. If you want to get the benefits of fasting, then start with a 12-hour window where you don't eat. And then what you can do is, as that becomes easier for you, you can increase that to 13 hours or to 14. So I will occasionally maybe do a 16-hour fast. Which I'll talk about in a minute, but what I mainly do is I'll stop eating at maybe like 7:30, and then I probably won't eat my breakfast until 9 o'clock, 8:30. And that works really well for me. I often do exercise first thing, so by the time I'm exercised, dressed, ready, sorted stuff out, it's about 9 o'clock or 9:30, and I'm ready for breakfast, and I'll eat some breakfast while I get started on my working day. So that's a really easy strategy. So takeaway is, allow for a 12-hour fast between your final meal and your first meal. And that means no drinking milk, just drink water and herbal teas from your final meal to your last meal, which is easy to do in the evening. Just drink some herbal teas or black tea, and then just have your breakfast the next day. If you want to increase that fasting window, because there is some benefits to doing that, the strategy I find best is to have a really early dinner and then just have a longer window. So what I did the other day was I finished dinner at like 4:30 in the afternoon. I had a really early dinner, and then I didn't eat again until like 9:30 the next day. 5:30, 6:30, 7:30, 8:30, 9:30. Yeah, which works out 16 or 17-hour fast. That's really easy for me to do, because that day I'd eaten lots and lots of food. Because the biggest mistake people make with fasting is that they try to restrict their calories and hardly eat anything. That's really not a great idea. When you are eating, you want to eat proper amounts of meals. And intermittent fasting isn't just about reducing your calories, it's actually about reducing your eating window. So what you want to do is make your eating window 8 hours long, 10 hours long, so you're not constantly grazing from 7 a.m. till 11 p.m. You want to keep the window upon which you eat, say between 8 and 6. So it's a condensed amount of time, so that you give your body maybe 12, maybe 14-hour break to reset and focus on all the other tasks that it needs to do in the body. So I hope that has been helpful. Those are a couple of strategies I do. I, in general, every day try to keep 12 hours between my last meal and my first meal. If I'm hungry, I obviously eat. That's important to say. This really isn't about starving yourself. You'll actually do more damage, way more damage to your body if you do that. And then occasionally, maybe once a week, maybe twice a week, I'll do a longer 16 or 18-hour fast where I don't skip breakfast. I just have an early tea. Still have my 3 meals, but I have dinner at maybe 4 o'clock, and then I won't eat breakfast. I won't eat again until breakfast the next day at maybe 8 o'clock or 9 o'clock. And it's important to say with intermittent fasting, it really should come from a place where you're genuinely not hungry. If you're forcing yourself to do it and you're really, really hungry, then it's a sign your body's stressed out. So for me, I will for some reason, Sundays, I genuinely often don't want dinner on a Sunday. So I'll skip dinner and I'll end up having a 16-hour fast. I'm not forcing it. It's often because I've had a really late lunch, because by the time I've been to church, come home, I'm not having lunch till 3 or 4 o'clock, and I'll have a big Sunday lunch. Like this Sunday, I made a big Can't remember what it was, a big Sunday lunch and then a big bolognese, and then we had a really big tasty crumble. I was really full and genuinely wasn't hungry. So I didn't eat again until breakfast the next day. This really should come from an intuitive place. So I hope that has been really helpful for you. If you have any questions about intermittent fasting, then let me know below and I will get back to you whether you're watching this live or in the recording. I currently don't think I can see any, but sometimes they load up slower. Otherwise, if you want to head to the retreat, make sure you apply. If you want some deliciously sugar-free Christmas recipes, make sure you head to supernaturallyhealthy.co.uk and all the details will be there. Otherwise, I'll see you next Tuesday at 6 p.m. for another Supernaturally Healthy Live. And between now and then, why not just try taking a 12-hour fast between your dinner and your breakfast and just see how you feel. See how that works for you. Otherwise, I shall see you next week. Sending you lots of love. Remember to eat like you love yourself. And I will see you soon. Bye.